Goodbye evening.
Hey y'all, I just realized that I have yet to update anyone about my labor and delivery with my son, who is now 7 months old, and I'll show y'all. Hold on just a second. There's my daughter right there, and there's my 7-month-old son now. He is crawling, he is trying to talk, he's very vocal, and he is doing good. Now, he does have a dairy allergy, and that was a pain in the butt to find that out, but he's doing good. That being said, let's go into the update on my labor and delivery story. So, I had said in previous videos that I had been essentially in labor at like roughly 3 centimeters for about a week prior to me going to the hospital and actually being admitted. It was rough, let me just tell you. And for anybody who understands, who has been through labor that lasted that long, will understand it was just miserable. I had gone to the hospital a total of 7 times. The 7th time, we finally got admitted. That being said, at our trip at the hospital, we had been there and we thought we were just going to get sent home again. And they finally were like, well, let's just keep monitoring you for a little bit longer because you've been going through this all week. And the nurse, she was so sweet. She was like, well, girl, I'm going to try and hopefully get you to the point where we can get you to a 4 and actually be able to keep you. She checked me once. She allowed me to get up and walk around, do some squats, do whatever I had to do. I was pushing all the pressure points that I knew how because, been through labor before. I was just fed up and done. And I finally it was my first day in my 37 weeks. So I was finally allowed to go into labor. I was done. That being said, she finally checked me after about maybe an hour or two. And she was like, girl, you're at a 4. You're not at a full 4, but I can stretch it to a 4. So we're going to go ahead and keep you. I was like, cool. I get into a room and I was like, hey, how soon can I get this epidural? Because I've been miserable. First thing they tell me is you need to wait as long as humanly possible is what we suggest to let your body progress naturally as much as humanly possible because it will go quicker. So I was like, you know what? Fine. That's fine. Whatever. I mean, if I can handle it, I can handle it. It's fine. It was about 4 or 5 hours in, and I finally was like, okay, I want my epidural now. And I was also not on any kind of, medication to help progress my labor. It was just all natural. My water had not broken, nothing like that. Essentially, I had been raw dogging it for a while, and I was ready for my epidural. They gave me my epidural, and at first I was like, okay, it's still taking its time to work. Well, after a couple hours in, it's still not working. By the time, which I got admitted around 11:45 at night, it was about 3 o'clock when I got the epidural, and then by, I want to say, 8 a.m. the next day, I was so miserable. I was screaming in pain. I was like, I don't know what to do. Someone help me. I was losing it. Finally, they were like, well, we can't really give you anything else because you can't take anything else because you're allergic to all of these pain meds. Moving forward, I ended up finally, they had to break my water around 12 p.m. because it just my labor wasn't progressing fast enough, and they were like, well, let's just go ahead and break your water still isn't broken, let's just go ahead and do it. That was so painful. I didn't expect it to be painful, but it was painful. Keep in mind, the epidural I had was not functioning at all. After they broke my water, it's instantly, the pain got magnified, quadrupled. It was so bad. I had never, even with my first, I had never experienced labor pains like this. By, I think, it was 1 o'clock, maybe 2 p.m., I was screaming in pain, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need something. And she was like, well, the only thing we can really do is maybe try doing another epidural. And I was like, do it. Dylan, my husband, he was like, he was about to make a drastic decision and just tell them to get him out of me, but cutting him out. It was so bad. When I tell you I was screaming, this guttural, animalistic scream, So 14 full hours of unmedicated. Technically, it wasn't unmedicated because, I had the epidural. It just wasn't working. Finally, they do another epidural while I am screaming, like having to be still while horrendous contractions are going on. Was so bad. They took out the other epidural, they inserted a new one, and my husband had to sit outside because they wouldn't allow him to stay in for this epidural. He got to watch my first one with my daughter, my first kid. He didn't want to watch it again, needless to say. Anyway, the second that I laid down once getting the second epidural in, I immediately felt almost instant relief. I finally had an epidural in that was actually working. So the last hour, I got to sit back and I relaxed for the first time in a little over a week. I was able to breathe, I was able to relax, I was able to just calm down. And like the whole time, like I felt like I was gonna die. Like I couldn't open my eyes, I couldn't talk to anybody, I could barely hear anybody. I commend all the women that do that with every one of their babies, and they do it more than once. I couldn't do that again, ever. Granted, it did help my body do everything naturally, and it was great, and I'm happy that it happened the way that it did. For one simple reason. When it got to the point, my nurse checked me, and she was like, you're at a 10. Let's go ahead and get the OB in here and get you to start pushing. A few minutes later, she goes and gets my legs up into stirrups, and immediately she had to close my legs shut. She was like, oh, okay, we gotta wait. And then she had her hand down there, and I'm like, is his head trying to come out? And she goes, yeah. She tried so hard to keep my little boy in there, but he was just not wanting to stay. He was just ready. And next thing I know, she's like, okay, we can't wait any longer. It was a few minutes of her trying to just wait to get the OB in, and he was busy somewhere else. So she was like, you know what? We're just going to have to do it. So she finally put my legs back up into stirrups, had all the nurses help her. Well, she had all the nurses help her get the room fully prepared. And she was like, everybody, come in here. She finally put my legs back up into the stirrups, and immediately she was like, okay, push. And one push, and he just slid out. So all in all, right after that, my OB then walked in, and he was like, oh, I guess we had a baby, huh? And he was perfectly healthy. He was 7 pounds, 6 ounces, I think I can't remember exactly because, I remember my daughter's measurement, like her weight and her height and all that stuff, but I just cannot for the life of me. I knew he was 7 something. He was not super big, but he was not super small. He was the perfect size. Now, granted, for a little bit, they did have to take him. It was a few hours. They had to take him to the NICU just to make sure that they could get his temperature and his blood sugar under control because he was having issues with that. But all in all, he ended up being perfectly happy, perfectly safe, and he did have jaundice pretty bad to the point where they had to put him under UV lights. But after a couple days in the hospital, after his we were good. We went home, and my daughter loves him. She's autistic, so she doesn't fully understand. But she's done very, very well with him. She's surprisingly nice to him, and she doesn't really understand what he is quite yet. But he loves her. She loves him, and it's just gotten really, really good. Hey, Liam. Hey, what you doing? Say, yeah, I'm happy. It is not plugged in, that cord, by the way. He has an obsession with cords, outlets, our Christmas tree, that's another one. And really anything he can hurt himself on just has an obsession. So this is the first time in these 3 years, 3.5 years I've been a mom, that I'm now having to baby proof, because I never had to do that with my daughter because of her autism, she was never interested in anything. So it's a new thing. It's a new feeling. It's fun though. Yeah. I hope y'all enjoyed this, and I had a blast talking about it. I enjoyed my labor and delivery. It might not have been so fun, but I made it through and have a great little 7-month-old, don't I? Yeah. Y'all have a good day. Bye-bye.